Tonight on First Tuesday...
That age you don't understand anything about a war or anything. It's just frightened.
A reunion of Jewish refugees who wrote a diary together 45 years ago. And the long road north to visit your man in jail.
She calls me Daddy. She calls everybody Daddy.
Good evening and welcome to First Tuesday. In tonight's programme, we set out in both our films to discover the meaning of two quite different pilgrimages by two groups of women in utterly different circumstances. But you may feel, as I do, that each group reveals qualities in common, qualities that have to do with resilience, honesty, humour and strength. The first film, which is called Our First Year, takes us back to August 1939 and those last days of summer before the outbreak of the Second World War.
Even the most far-reaching stories have to begin somewhere. This one began in the seaside town of Southport. Not here in proud Lord Street, but nearby at a local jumble sale. At jumble sales, what has been discarded and forgotten as rubbish once again becomes valuable and interesting, and objects hidden away for years are reassessed with new eyes. In this way, Mrs. Helen Connolly found the diary of Harris House. It had been lost for over 40 years, yet its pages tell the story of a group of young girls who had come to an ordinary house in Southport to escape from a man and a philosophy which had threatened to destroy them all. The Jews that could got out with their families. Others sent their children on alone. The flood of refugee children started arriving in England late in 1938. They had left their homes forever. But even in those countries willing to take children, it was not so easy for adult refugees to find sanctuary. As the children settled into a new life in England, in Hitler's Reich, their parents' desperate struggle for visas went on. In all, nearly 10,000 children came to Britain in the year before the war. Amongst them, these 10 girls, the first of those who would go to Southport and become the authors of the Diary of Harris House. Today, that diary is a valued exhibit of the newly opened Jewish Museum in Manchester.
This diary was found in 1981. It was found at a jumble sale. And I think you'll find it very interesting because it's written by girls approximately your age. Imagine that you were these girls. Imagine what would happen if suddenly you were cut from your parents, from your brothers, from your sisters. Their lives had been turned upside down completely. And this particular lady, perhaps you'd like to read it and see what she says?
With the beginning of the Nazi regime, all my hopes were destroyed. My father's business was confiscated. I shall never forget the day when they came for my father and took him to the concentration camp.
In 1939, Margaret Stone, herself in exile, was matron of the hostel in Southport.
Oh, yes. We had all had our experiences of it. We have seen cruelties in the street. We have seen people arrested on the bus stops, never to be seen again. We knew all that. And the girls were all very grateful to be out of this horrible atmosphere. I lived with these girls day in, day out. So it meant, of course, it was my life. After 40 years, to see that book again, which you thought had been lost forever. It was really a wonderful feeling.
My father had a good business, and we lived very comfortably. We were a happy family of 4. My father, my mother, my big sister and I. My name is Gina Bauer.
My name is Gina Bauer, We were a happy family of 4. My father, my mother, my big sister and I. We lived in Vienna, where I was born on December 10th, 1924. I've really pushed the whole Southport episode to the back of my mind, and I never had any particular desire to go back to the town or to that period in my life. But when the book was found, and the book about Harris House, and the opportunity presented itself, I felt I couldn't really not go. It was just something I really had to do. I think I would have regretted not going and not seeing the place again.
It is over 45 years since the young Gina Bauer fixed her photograph in the book of Harris House. But she was not alone in finding the call of the rediscovered diary irresistible. Others too were on their way back to Southport. Claire Shapiro, who was only 12 when she first arrived at Harris House from Vienna. Eva Rieser, who came from Magdeburg in Germany just a month before the war. Margot Brauer, the orphan from Silesia, who felt happy in Southport, and Kitty Pistol from Vienna, who wanted to stay forever. Frieda Beer, also from Vienna, who loved cinema and theatre. And Jutta Schultz from Germany, who was waiting, she wrote in the diary, for good to triumph over evil. They have not seen each other for 45 years. It has taken the book to bring them back together.
You're the dancer.
I know you.
Yes. Oh, Margaret. Yes, hello. How are you?
And I turn to the back page and I start reading Harris's House and I start reading names.
No, that's my writing.
Yes,
that's
but
my
then,
writing. That's
all the writing is
so neat.
beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, some girls. What's her name?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, my friend.
Yeah.
I haven't got that picture.
I have that picture, but I didn't know who it was. That was my problem. Very nice.
Do you remember it now?
Yeah, I don't remember writing this, but I think I'm amazed that I was able to write something like this. It's incredible. I was curious what I looked like then, but who knows?
I feel very happy as everyone is very kind to me. But I'm looking forward to take up farming as soon as the opportunity will be found. In my dreams, I can see my brother and me working together on a nice farm of our own, somewhere in the wide world, or perhaps in my beloved England. Margaret Power. It's so true, you know. Well, I lost my brother, unfortunately. He Auschwitz.
As if it isn't me. Funny, but it's as if it isn't me. I can't remember writing it. It's as if it's somebody else.
I see, actually, to my astonishment, I mean, you know, I wrote here, I think I have the best parents in the world, because at that time they were still alive. I mean, that I still thought of them in the present tense. That strikes me so extraordinary. That really gives me a jerk every time I look at it, because that I still thought of them as being there, as there was still some hope of seeing them again.
I'm more than happy. I did not quite know what to expect. And to see them looking well, healthy, strong, and happy is really something, the feeling I cannot describe, of happiness and pride, and it's a wonderful feeling. And carry me through the rest of my life, even if I don't ever see them again. Will be an unforgettable moment, having them again around me. I saw in my mind's eye the actual setting. I saw them running around in the house and in the garden. For me, as I said, they haven't changed.
think this was the green room.
Is
and
it
the other one
jogging
was
or
the
is it
pink
running
room.
for...
Do you remember we all had eiderowns to match?
Yes. Yes, it went down.
Sunken garden.
There were some steps going down.
Yes.
Where the garage is now.
And that's where we
Do you remember the
played.
greenhouse?
Yes.
I don't
That's
remember
where I
the
cycled.
Yeah?
Let's go to the wash house, right? And this is the wash house.
Yep, that's the wash.
There we did our washing.
Yeah. This room I'd like to take home.
I know,
And
it's
put
like
someplace.
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Found out I put on 2 stone or something like that. I mean,
That's
Right,
because
where-
we had a breakfast room over there, and in
That's
the
right.
afternoon we used to have an open fire, and we used to make toast.
oh, you're always
Remember
eating.
that? We were always eating. That's why. That's right.
You put on weight while you're here. Yes, quite a lot.
And you've never lost it.
And then I lost it and I put it on again.
Yes.
When I arrived, I was told by the girls boys are not allowed in the home because there were 2 boys calling before my arrival and they were hushed away like chickens. That's the best example.
We smoked.
We started smoking. I remember we allowed out on Saturday, and we used to. I don't know whether that's
Saturday afternoon.
Saturday. We bought some woodbines
5 woodbines, do you
in a
remember?
packet, and then we used
I-
to stand by the window at night, very late at night, and puff the smoke out the window, and fall into bed, sort of, because you feel a bit giddy when you've never smoked again. And we felt very grown up.
Do you remember these steep stairs?
I remember the steps. I didn't remember they were quite that steep.
Well, they didn't seem so steep when we were 14, I can tell you.
I guess when you're younger, you can think it's so much better.
Come along. I think this is...
I knew a boy named Derek who used to come by Harris house and stand behind the hedges, the big hedge which I recognized.
Those lamps weren't there.
And we used to stand at the window and kind of whisper, or maybe we threw down notes or something, because we were always afraid a matron would come up and have a fit because the boys were outside.
Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those peepers? Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those eyes?
As a place of exile, Southport had obvious attractions.
Lit up, guys sure get up. How'd they get that size? Golly.
It was the summer season of 1939, and despite mounting tension on the continent, the weather was fine, and for most of the summer, it was business as usual. It wasn't until late August that it became clear that the fun would have to stop.
How'd they get more tires? Oh, where'd you get those eyes?
The girls in Harris' house watched the crisis develop with growing dismay. Their parents were still trapped in Germany and Austria, and the time to rescue them was slipping away.
The Germans marched into Poland, and that's when we were getting really desperate. And my sister told me afterwards that she phoned my parents in Vienna, and she said, for heaven's sake, get to the frontier. Just try to get out, because war is imminent. My father was over 60. He was not very strong, and I suppose it was just more than they could face to just go into the mountains and go illegally into Switzerland. It was not something that was really in their nature to do something illegal. That was basically it as well. I mean, they were law-abiding citizens, and they had a permit to go out of Vienna, out of Austria. They had a ticket. They had their suitcases packed. It was only another few days, and they probably said to my sister, we'll hang on just for another few days. It's only, I mean, it was Saturday maybe then. It's only till next Wednesday. Surely we'll make it. But they didn't. In fact, I've got it in my diary. On the 31st of August, my sister sent me a telegram from London here. It arrived here at the hostel. Parents arriving Wednesday. Well, that would have been the 6th of September. Shall we be lucky? I can hardly believe it anymore. Then on the 1st of September, I wrote, the Germans have marched into Poland. I'm translating. Does that mean war? Is it all too late? Dear God, only a few more days. Help just this once, only 5 days. On the 2nd of September, on Saturday, English ultimatum. I have
no hope left. 3rd September on the Sunday, England declares war against Germany. Now it is all finished, too late. 3 days too late. Where is there a God who can allow such a thing to happen? Poor dear parents, shall we see each other again? Oh dear. I could kick myself when I remember how cheeky and unobedient I often was. I didn't understand, of course, what the love of parents meant. And now it is perhaps too late. What do I care if the whole world falls to pieces? Goodness. Yeah, that's how I welcome the war.
This is London. You will now hear a statement by the Prime Minister. I am speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany. You can imagine what a bitter blow it is to me that all my long struggle to win peace has failed.
We were in the lounge and the radio was on top of the piano. And we all stood round and we listened about war being declared. And I don't think there was any much said after that. We were very quiet, if I remember rightly. But
yes, my overall memory is that the great silence fell upon us all. We sat there like statues. Nobody talked, nobody said a word. And then after that, the calm before the storm, they broke out, each in their own way, talking about their own disappointments and grief, and cried. Some cried.
Well, I was very upset. I couldn't say anything because it was hard to believe. It was a shock, I think, not just to me, but to the whole world, I suppose, to everybody. And I think I would have felt that even if my mother and my relations would have been out of the country, because war is something terrible, so. I didn't know what to say when I heard all that. I mean, we expected it because we knew what was going to happen, and we didn't believe that there will be peace, I'm sorry to say, but we always hoped for a miracle, but, you know, there was no miracle happening, so.
At that age, you don't understand anything about a war or anything. I was just frightened.
You understood it?
No, I didn't. I didn't know what was going on. I knew what a war was, but I didn't know what was in front of me. But I was frightened, I remember that.
Frankly, I think at the time wondered what was going to become of me, because I was a German in living in a country that just went to war. That much I understood, and normally that doesn't go too well. So I think that's what I really remember. I think the fact that I was going to be an orphan, I knew already before the war, because I knew what was going on in Germany.
I felt very alone, you know, because I only had my near family was my brother, and I knew that's it. I wouldn't see him.
I suddenly found out that I was kicked out of Germany because I was a Jew, and then I came here, and I suddenly became an alien, and it was most important that we went to the synagogue, and it was the same thing over again, that we now had to make sure that nobody knew we were German, or at least hide it as best we could, and bring out the Jewish, and that way we may be accepted as, quote, refugees or whatever else.
The girls remained at Harry's house for little over a year. In the summer of 1940, Hitler struck west and delivered a series of disastrous blows to the Allies. After Dunkirk and the fall of France, Britain now faced Germany alone, and aliens, even Jews and even children, came under suspicion. The coastline became a restricted area. Overnight, the girls were ordered to leave Southport. Behind them, in the rush, they left the diary of Harry's house. Few of the girls ever saw their parents again. Today, the refugees from Harry's house live scattered all over the world. Now they have their own families. They are mothers and grandmothers themselves. After the war, Kitty, who once wanted to stay in Southport forever, returned to Vienna, where her husband works for the United Nations. Gina lives with her family in Birmingham. She's expecting her first grandchild to be born at any time. Eva lives in America, where she is a buyer for a mail order company in New Jersey. Frida has long been happily settled in Tel Aviv. She has 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren. Claire, who once wanted to be a dress designer, now paints and makes pots in North London. Margot too has become a Londoner. She still works as a traffic warden in the heart of the city.
This is a very historical as well as sentimental moment.
And Jutta Schultz, the girl from Ratibor in Upper Silesia, has become Mrs. Judy Rubin of San Mateo, California.
And last but not least, a matron, Mrs. Margaret Stone, who was in charge of 18 young girls who ably managed to run the home. I'm sure it wasn't always an easy task, but we are here to thank you for your patience and for your guidance.
I often wonder why people make the extreme sacrifice to have sent their children away. And I guess in order to live, so we may carry on. We've proven that we've made it, and we grew up to be decent human beings.
Of course we're lucky. We have been lucky. Anybody who's had a chance to survive is lucky. If it wasn't for Southport, I'd be dead today.
Our first year, and all of that from one tattered little diary. What a find. In a moment, we go to Scotland to meet some young mothers on the way to visit